Okay, so now I think that you have your own opinion. As you can see, the guy is like me with fact. So as you can see, Muslim did attack all Europe, like France, like Great Britain, Russia, Poland, and it was at the time of the Byzantine that maybe you know, and it was like in the 640. What is that? 640. It's been a long time that they are attacking Christian all over the world, and still today they still kill Christian and us because we are Christian, because we are good people, naive, because at school they did not tell us the true fact. And even today, they want us to go like, oh, poor Muslim. Fuck them. Now we know the truth. We know that since the start of this religion, since the start of this religion, all they want is to invade us and kill Christian. Oh, why I said kill Christian? That's a word that I should not use. Oh, okay. I will not use it, but I will let my friend again, who's got a PhD and study in the Muslims, and again, I will let him talk. But just to mention one thing, because this is the thing that I hear a lot at television, on newspaper, at the radio, and why people are fucked up. Why they cannot understand what is to be a Muslim. Well, just because I want to say it, so let me say it because it's fun. Okay, in the Quran, it's like the Bible but for Muslims. In the Quran, like you will see, the first and second law. First and second law. The first law is that the Muslims religion, Muslim religion, is perfect. Therefore, if it is perfect, you cannot change a word. Not like the Bible. The Bible, we rewrite it, we make it say what we want, and that's why we got lost. Anyway, but in the Quran, it's very specific, and it is written, and it is the first law that Islam is the only true religion, and it is perfect. You cannot change it. Okay. So if you cannot change it, you cannot say anything about what it's written there, because if they say in the Quran, you need to kill a Christian because he is like a kafir or whatever you call him, miscreates, anyway, like Christian. Well, if you are, anyway, it's simple. You are not Muslim, you don't have the real law of God, which they call him Allah. Um, in fact, If you are not Muslim, you must die. Simple as that. So that's why we see a lot in Africa. By the way, in the thing that you just saw, did you notice that you see only the part of Europe, like not even China or just a little part of Russia, but China or the Asian part or Africa or North America? Nope. No, 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 no. We don't talk about that. All you saw, all the attack, all the invasion at that time was in Iraq only. But of course, they go to Africa. But anyway, now today, you see in Africa very often, like the guy who's called Boko Haram. I'm sure that you know about him. He is part of whatever ISIS, Taliban, call him whatever. He is a Muslim. And in the Muslim law, if you're not Christian or if you're not Muslim, you must die. So when the first attack we hear about him, because it goes on TV, as I can remember, that was the first time I hear about that guy. It was when he entered a school, a Christian school. He took like 200 girls, like 12 to 15 years old. And then he asked them, do you want to survive? If you want to live, you need to be convert to Muslim. If you don't, you die. Or you're going to be a fucking slave and we will fuck you until you die. Because this is the way they go. They love to fuck until you die. Or you become a Christian, you become a Muslim, and you can marry a Muslim guy and get babies, so he got more people around him. But anyway, the fact is that they took 200 people. The world was like, oh, Boko Haram is not. But it was happening in Africa. Nothing has been done. So anyway, this is just one fact that people know. He took 200 girls, convert them, and the one was not convert, they were killed. So the first law is Islam. Muslim is the first and unique real religion. If you are not Muslim, you must die. This is a letter inside the Quran. But in fact, this is not a religion of peace, unless you are Muslim. But then why Muslim kill Muslim? Oh, why? Oh, because I asked myself the same question. Why Muslim would kill another Muslim? Oh, because it doesn't follow the law of Allah. Because they call it jihad, holy war. All Muslims must go and fight. But if you don't go and fight with them, then they kill you. That's why they kill a lot of Muslims, because for them, they are like Christian. They are not real Muslim, you must die. Because you don't follow the path of Muhammad, which is the second law. Muhammad is the one and only guy on this planet, suddenly like that, he proclaimed himself the one and only person, perfect, perfect. Well, you cannot be really perfect if you proclaim that this law is the only law, and if you don't follow that law, I kill you. Because if you kill someone, well, it's not really good. Hmm? Normally, it's not really good. But of the name of Allah, it's good. And people will say, yeah, but inside the Quran, there is a place that says you cannot kill other people. Okay, why inside the same little book there is two things that is the opposite, which is if you are not Muslim, you must die. But they killed Muslim and they killed Christian anyway. And later on in the Quran, they say you cannot kill anyone. This is like opposite. So the true fact is that even then, they don't know what is the truth. That is why they kill other Muslims, because they are fucked up. They take one law, they make it their law. Like, okay, we're gonna kill Christian because, or anyone who is not Muslim, because this is the law of Allah. But others will go like, no, I will not kill because the word of Allah says no kill. But if you are ISIS, you don't go like no kill. No, you go like I kill. And well, it's got to be explained why there is like this discrepancy inside the same book, because they don't want the people to know the truth. The truth is simply how the Quran has been written, by who, when, how, and this is what's going to be explained. And for that, you need the real fact. So, does the Quran was the first book to be written? No. There's two other books. One of them is the perfect, because if you read it, oh my God, it's the best religion that you cannot have. But like us, the best thing that cannot exist, well, should not exist, because even us, we never believe in the good things. We always believe that if it's too good to be true, then it's not true. Well, it's about that did happen to the Quran. Why become the Quran? Why Muhammad, who was started to be a good guy, who turned to be a really bad guy and decided to write the Quran. So, I will let you go with my friend, well, it's not my friend, but the same guy who's got a PhD, and he will explain it, and why there's a part inside that I like is why we lose. No, I think it's like the third video. Anyway, I will let you go with the second one, and then I will make a third part, because I think that now it's going to be really big videos. So I will make like part 1, part 2, and part 3, because in part 3 I will condense one thing that this guy went to a TV show, and he explained why they attack us, why we have so many problems with them, and why we are so stupid, because we are stupid. As Christian, as Buddhism, as Hindu, as whatever you want, all the religion except Muslim, Islam. Okay? And I'm not talking about the religion. I'm talking about the fact. Only the fact. I'm not saying that I don't want to get inside the play of everyone saying that Muslims are bad. There's a reason why they are bad. Simple. One reason. My humble opinion, well, they are stupid because they believe in one book. Anyway, all will be explained. This is my opinion, my small one, but this is his opinion, his fact, and this guy is good.
I think that you all are here motivated by the fact that there was a recent jihad attack, and I would like to go over some of my views on that, but also wanted to go over the fact that there is something to be known about a subject called Islam. And I would like to lead you through this because it depends on the Islam that you know is what allows you to reach conclusions. And so let's just start right into this. This is official Islam. Now, official Islam is what we get in the media. It's based on expert opinion. This is very handy because as long as you're going to define something by experts, you can get whatever you want. If you want nice, friendly Islam, you've got that. If you want Islamic State, you have that. So the nice thing about the expert method is you get opinions, you can get what you want. Now, the other thing that the media tells us is that Islam is a religion, and it's the religion of peace. Let me say that I have no interest in the religion of Islam and won't be discussing it tonight at all. The other thing we hear is, well, those are just extremists or radicals. You'll notice that when I get through tonight, I will not be using the term extremist or radical. Oh, I know this Muslim and he says, I don't know, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this. And the nice thing about this is, once again, if you view the Muslim as an expert, you can get the answer you want, warm and friendly or tough. That most Muslims are moderate, and that moderate Muslims are the real Muslim. And that jihad is an inner struggle. Jihad does not have anything to do with violence and war. And then last but not least, if you violate the rules of official Islam, you will be called a hater, a bigot, a racist, and an Islamophobe. I happen to know this is true. So that's official Islam, and now I'd like to introduce you to another Islam, which I will call fact-based Islam. We need something that is objective. Opinions are nice, but they're like elbows. Everybody's got at least two of them. What we want is something that is objective, and I'm going to lead you through an objective study of Islam. And to do that, I'm going to start with a principle which every Muslim agrees with who's ever lived for 1,400 years. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. This is what I'm going to build the whole foundation of my presentation in front of you. The beauty of this is that every Muslim agrees with this. So we have a foundation which is rock solid. Now, where do we learn about Allah? Well, we learn about Allah in the Quran. You need to know that there are two Qurans. Now, do not go into the bookstore and try to say you want to buy both of them, because every Quran you buy contains both of them in a single binding. But there's an early Meccan Islam and a latter Medinan Quran, and these are extraordinarily different. But you just need to know that there's two different Qurans. And by the way, if you want to, when this lecture is over, give me a business card and I will email you all of the slides for this lecture if you want to, so you don't have to take notes. Okay, now one of the things that strikes people when they read the Quran is its contradictory nature. Here I've given you two verses. You have your own religion and I have mine. Very moderate. I like it. Let there be no compulsion in religion. I like it. Then we have another, which is Surah 8:12. I shall cast terror into the hearts of the kafirs. Kafirs are unbelievers such as myself. Strike off their heads, strike off the very tips of their fingers. Do you notice these two contradict each other? And so that's one of the impressions that people get when they study the Quran, is that it's so contradictory. Which one is the real Quran? I'll give you this answer now. Yes. They're both true. They're both real. Now, there's a rule given in 3 verses in the Quran which establishes a principle of abrogation. The latter verse is better and stronger than the earlier verse. So what this says is that the jihad verse is stronger and better than the earlier tolerant verse. We'll deal a lot more on this. This fits under the heading of dualism. Now then, this is what I'm all about. If you read the Quran, you'll discover something that is missing, which is the ability to practice any of the 5 pillars of Islam. So the Quran itself cannot be the basis of Islam because it does not contain enough material in it to do so. Where do we get the missing material? There are 91 verses in the Quran which state this: Muhammad is the divine human prototype. Muhammad is the perfect human being. Muhammad is the perfect pattern of life. If you follow his life, you can go to paradise, and if you don't, you will definitely go to hell. So, how do we find out about Muhammad? Simple. We have his biography called the Sirah, and we have his traditions called the Hadith. I've just laid them out here, the Hadith, the Sirah, and the Quran, and you'll notice something which we'll comment on in a bit, which is the Quran looks kind of small, doesn't it? Well, it is. Now then, I'm going to repeat what you've already heard. I do not discuss Muslims other than to point out how they obey or disobey the doctrine of Islam. An example of this method is Islamic State is pure Islam. I do not discuss people, nor do I ask Muslims what Islam means. Because if you're going to do that, there's about 1.5 billion of them, and I don't have time to ask 1.5 billion people any question. So I only ask a question of 2 people, Muhammad and Allah. Now then, this goes back to the point that if you count the words in the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith, you'll discover something. Islam is the doctrine contained in these 3 books. If it's in these 3 books, it is Islam. If it's not in these 3 books, it is not Islam. Got it? Islam is this much Allah and this much Muhammad. Well, that's kind of nice. Because now then all we have to do to really understand the most of Islam is to understand Muhammad. Now Allah is a little confusing, but Muhammad is not confusing at all. So we start our understanding of Islam based on Muhammad. What I'm saying here is Islam is the doctrine found in the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith, or said another way, it's Allah plus the Sunnah. The Sunnah is the perfect pattern of Muhammad, or it's Allah and Muhammad, or it's 3 books, Quran, Sirah, Hadith. And this is what I base everything on. I base everything that I say on these 3 books. I listen to Muhammad and say what he says. I read the Quran and say what Allah says. Okay? That's my method. Now then, if you start reading these 3 books and you've done a lot of reading of religious literature around the world, such as I've done, you're immediately struck by something. I'm in that book because I'm a kafir. And the bulk of the Islamic doctrine is about the unbeliever. Now this is rather odd because most religious books, if you read Buddhist sutras, it's about how to be a Buddhist. They barely address the fact that they're a non-Buddhist. They certainly don't fixate on it. But we can see here, and I can't really see in the back enough, that I think it's 64% of the Quran, am I reading that right? 64% of the Quran is about the kafir. 81% of Muhammad's life is him dealing with the kafir. 37% of the Hadith, or the trilogy, Quran, Sirah, Hadith, the 3 books, over half of it is about you and me. Now then, this is important because all I speak about with Islam is political Islam. I speak about the part of Islam that affects me. I don't comment upon prayer. I don't comment upon the proper attitude when giving the zakat or any other religious things. I don't care if Muslims pray 3 times a day as the Quran says or 5 times a day as the Hadith says. I don't care if Muslims pray towards Mecca or Minnesota. It simply doesn't matter to me. I have no interest in Islamic heaven and I have no fear of Islamic hell. I'm trying to drive this point home. I will not be speaking about the religious doctrine of Islam. I'm going to speak about the part of the doctrine that affects me and possibly you. Now then, the J word, jihad. We run across now a peculiarity of the Quran, which is this. In the Meccan Quran, in the early Quran, there is no jihad, none. But in Medina, The latter Quran, 24% of it is about jihad. This is not a verse or two, as you're told. And talking about interpretation, these figures give you an interpretation. When you read a book and 24% of it is devoted to a subject, what do you think about that? It's important. So that is an interpretation. The Sirah, 67% of it is about jihad. The Hadith, 21% of it is about jihad, which gives us nearly a third of Islamic doctrine is devoted to jihad. It is not a sentence or a verse or two. It is a systemic doctrine. Now then, one of the things that when you read the Quran in particular, well, for that matter, all of them, you discover that in Mecca, at first, the Jews are praised as honored amongst men. But at the very end of the Meccan Quran, there's beginning to be some anti-Jew material. And by the time you get to the Medinan Quran, 17% of the Quran in Medina is devoted to Jew hatred. Okay? And the Sirah, 12%, and the Hadith, nearly 9%. Now, generally considered that the most Jew hatred book would be Hitler's Mein Kampf. You all are familiar with that. Well, I've actually read it, and I went through and measured how much anti-Jew material there was, and it's 7%. The overall trilogy has 9%. Draw your own conclusions. Now then, here's the growth of Islam. Not only have I been a scientist and a college professor, I've run a business. If you run a business, you become quickly introduced to the concept of sales. But if you're not introduced to the concept of sales, you'll be seeking new employment. So I said to myself as a businessman, what did Muhammad's sales career look like? This is a graph of his life based on his results at proselytizing. He preached the religion of Islam for 13 years in Mecca and garnered 150 Arab souls, about 10 a year. He then went to Medina at the insistence of the Meccans, and he became a politician and a jihadist. He averaged an event of jihad in the last 9 years of his life, and he spent 10 of them in Medina. In the last 9 years, he averaged a jihad event every 6 weeks for 9 years. But when he died, the Arabian Peninsula was all Muslim. Conclusions. The religion was not a success. The politics was. All right? Now then, let's review the little charts I've given you. Dualism, because one of the things that drives people up the wall about Islam is, which is it? Well, here we have the answer. Is the Quran about peace? Yes. Is the Quran about jihad? Yes. Does the Quran contain material praising the Jews? Yes. Does it consist of material hating the Jews? Yes. Does it advocate tolerance in religion? Yes. Does it advocate killing those whose religion Islam doesn't like? Yes. We have Muhammad as a religious teacher, and we have Muhammad as a political leader. All of these things, and this is the most difficult concept for you to understand, is this. Islam is dualistic. It always has two versions. It's like having a sink with hot water and cold water. What do you need? Turn it on. This is quite peculiar, and it violates, as a Westerner, you say, well, if two things contradict each other, at least one of them is false. Not so in Islam. They're both true. That is, the Meccan Quran is true, and the Medinan Quran is true. Conclusions. There is such a thing as objective knowledge about Islam. This within itself is startling because everyone else says, well, it all depends on how you interpret it. I know this Muslim and he says. No, I don't want what opinions. These are the facts. If Muhammad speaks, it is true in Islam. If you know someone who says something about Islam that contradicts what Muhammad says, then it's wrong. So why bother with other people? Just go to Muhammad. The doctrine of Islam is political and religious. Islam is a civilizational doctrine. Let me make one thing very clear. If Islam were a religion, I'd be at home in my wood shop. But it is not a religion. It's a complete civilization. There is nothing that you can think of in your daily life that Islam does not have a prescription on. What to wear, what to eat, how to make love, how to marry, how to carry on your daily life. Everything is prescribed in Islam. So it's a civilizational doctrine. The doctrine determines actions by Muslims. A Muslim is supposed to follow the doctrine of Islam. That's the only way I talk about Muslims. I'll say, well, they're following the doctrine or they're not following the doctrine, but they're supposed to. The other thing is that today, all of the doctrine of Islam is very easy to understand. I was a college professor, and you find two kinds of professors in college. One are those who are erudite and want you to think they're very intelligent, and they may well be. But I was not that kind of professor. I was the kind of professor who loved to make it so that anybody could understand it. And that's what I have done and others have done. I sell Qurans that anyone can pick up and read and understand, and they contain all the verbiage. The Life of Muhammad, which used to be written in the most difficult English I've ever read, is now easy to read. The Hadith are now easy to understand. So that's the other part of the message I bring you. Now then, let's go with this. So, there's objective Islam and there's subjective Islam. Official Islam is subjective.